Okay, good morning everyone. We are back in TEHILLIM, and as we mentioned last week, this series of 4 TEHILLIM that are coming up, they're all very much interconnected. It is Dovid HaMelech working through his challenges in life, suffering, the difficulties, the hardships, the enemies that are all around him, which, as we pointed out, is really a lot of what TEHILLIM is about. But these particular ones are zooming in. I guess that's why everybody's staying on Zoom, because we're zooming in to King David's travails of life. Now, today's TEHILLIM, to me anyway, is very fascinating, because we learn that the great Dovid HaMelech, who is king, the greatest tzaddik of the generation, probably the biggest Talmud Chacham of the generation, the biggest Bala Amuna, the most person with the greatest amount of belief in HaKadosh Baruch Hu of the generation. He also is the most self-effacing and honest person of his generation as well, because through this TEHILLIM, he explores his own understanding of the purpose of his life. He is willing to humble himself and to admit that he struggles in certain areas of his amunah and his dveikis and his avodas Hashem. Throughout the TEHILLIM, he is constantly, I would almost say, berating himself or questioning himself. Why does he feel weak in this area, and why does he feel weak in that area? Which means that if the great Dovid HaMelech was able to show his weakness, what we would call a weakness, he was able to show his weakness or his fragility in the realm of Amunah, in the realm of Avodas Hashem, in the world of Torah, of Hashgacha Pratis, of Amunah, Bitachon, Bechira, as we're going to see. So then we should be comfortable with ourselves, and we should be able to say, at the beginning of the day, when we find ourselves, the questions are piling up, the uncomfortability with a situation of recognizing it's Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Geyser, everything in a person's life, we should not feel bad about ourselves when we are struggling to come to grips with the way in which HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs our life and the things that are going on around us. Rather, it is okay to get weak. It is okay to have lapses in our emunah. It is okay for a person to feel struggles piling up upon them and wondering when are they ever going to go away, and what is HaKadosh Baruch Hu's message and the point that he's trying to make when he does this. And perhaps, as we will see through this TEHILLIM, the more that Dovid HaMelech was willing to question, and he was willing to put in the effort to come to a proper conclusion, so the deeper was the menuchas hanefesh, is the peace of mind that Dovid HaMelech imbibes and feels inside of him. So we live in a religious world where sometimes a person comes and they ask a question and they are shunned. And they are told, we don't talk like that. We don't ask such questions. What's the matter with you? Why don't you understand what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants of you? Where's your emunah? Where's your emunah? Don't you believe in Hashem? Doesn't Dovid HaMelech believe in Hashem? Doesn't Dovid HaMelech have well springs of emunah that have been building up since the time that he was born? Doesn't he know the Rebbeinu Shalom more than anybody else in this world? Doesn't Dovid HaMelech know that? So if Dovid HaMelech is coming and asking questions, why Hashem, how Hashem, what's going on in this world, should we say, Dovid, where's your emunah? Don't you believe in Hashem? The answer is, of course he believes in Hashem. And of course he has miraculous levels of emunah. There's no shaila about that at all. But this that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, this that Dovid HaMelech teaches us in the TEHILLIM today is that it's okay to question. And it is okay to examine, and it's okay, it's encouraged. If Dovid HaMelech opens up his life, and that which is going on, the quandary that is in his mind, and the pain that he feels in the spiritual realms of his life, that he needs to ask these questions to discern what is Hashem's way and what is not his way. So then we, thousands of years later, on the low levels of Amunah that we hang on to every single day, the struggles that we have on a daily, minutely basis in our lives, all of this is nothing to be alarmed about. We don't throw in the towel of Amunah. We don't have to walk around anxious because something happened to us and we don't know how to deal with it. Oh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, what are you doing to me? No, on the other hand, let's learn from Dovid HaMelech. Let's learn the way that he was so honest, so humble, so inquisitive, to try to understand the ways of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and his tafkid, his purpose here in this world and what Hashem wants. And if Dovid HaMelech could speak like this, and he could be bothered by the things that are going on around him. And we'll see, according to the Rav Hirsch, he even berates himself that he made a mistake in the way that he tried to comprehend what HaKadosh Baruch Hu was doing, and it hurt him. And therefore he had to overcome his mistakes. So then it's understood. We will make mistakes. We will do things that are wrong. We will get weak in situations where maybe other people are going to be strong. We are going to have lapses in our reasoning, in our amunah, in our understanding of what it means to be a Jew and our purpose here in this world. It's all par for the course of life. And if a person thinks that they're going to go through life and they're never going to have these basic challenges of amunah, of bitachon, of our adherence to Hashem's will, recognizing Hashgacha Pratis, understanding the bechira, the choices that we have to make with our free will. A person thinks they're going to go through life and never have to deal with that. How wrong they are. And what happens is that we're living in these glass houses, and therefore when push comes to shove and we start thinking, how could I think this? How could I not believe in Hashem under the circumstances? How could I not say everything HaKadosh Baruch Hu does is for the good and therefore I'm going to get past this? How could I be anxious right now? And if a person thinks that they don't have a right to get weak and to be anxious and to be uncertain and unsure, then that means they're just going to be missing the whole point of the avodah, of the growth that we are looking for and trying to have over here in the world of our avodas Hashem and our emunah. So, without any further ado, with that introduction, that Dovid HaMelech, he revealed himself. He was transparent for all of history. That we should allow ourselves the transparency between us and Hashem to also grow in the right way. So we owe Dovid HaMelech a tremendous debt of gratitude for TEHILLIM Lamed Tes, because again, according to the way the Meforshim explain it over here, it's just fascinating the things that Dovid HaMelech was asking. So let's go in the beginning over here, Lamed Tes 39. The pasuk says, "Lamnatseich liYedusa mizmor leDavid." Machlekes over here in the Mefarshim is lidusan. Yedusan, is it a person or is it a description? So Rashi writes over here that this name Yedusan is a person. As we discussed perhaps in the very beginning of Tehillim, not every single Tehillim that we have was written by Dovid HaMelech. Most of them, the majority were. However, we do find that there are Tehillim, as we're going to get to, that were written by Moshe Rabbeinu. We'll find that there were Tehillim of Bnei Korach, the sons of Korach. And now, according to Rashi, this Tehillim also was written by a person by the name of Yedusan. He was Midam Shoderim. He was from the singers of the beautiful psalms that were there. And therefore, that's what it says, Lamnatseich liYedusan. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives strength liYedusan, and that's the way that Rashi interprets it. However, Rav Hirsch, and I think it would be clear according to many of the commentators, Either it means that Yedusam was not the one who wrote it, but Dovid HaMelech for some reason was speaking to him, or he's not the one that wrote it at all. And Rav Hirsch writes, this does not mean that this was talking about the person Yedusan. It's a language of yad, hand, and it means over here that Dovid HaMelech is saying that to him, to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the one who grants strength to master what he calls over here the hashkacha, the providences of Hashem's hand, a mizmor leDavid, it is a song, a psalm of David, which means that he learns out, Rav Hirsch, that the word Yedusan is from the hands yad. Yad means hand, and it means that the hand of God is acting over here. The hand of God always is symbolic of the hashkacha, the providence that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has over a person. And therefore, David is dedicating this particular psalm over here to him, to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who grants spiritual fortitude to an individual to master the tasks that are set down for our soul with a great victory, because the providence is coming from the hand of Hashem. In our vernacular, in our English, let's say it like this: Dovid HaMelech is giving credit to the Rabbi Shalom, that as he was going through all these questions that he's going to have, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the one that is garnering Dovid HaMelech with the strength to be able to recognize the hashkacha pratis, the way that things are working in his life, and it will give him the strength to be makabel, to accept, and to overcome the gezeros, those decrees that are difficult. But as David himself is going to explain and to enunciate with his words, is that it's all part of the challenges that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to give me, because he's training me for a much greater task and a much greater goal in this world, which is the common theme that Rav Hirsch comes to in many, many of the Tehillim. Which means that David, again, as we said, he went through so many challenges, but he kept understanding that the challenges are what's making me who I am. It's what is making me the great person. A person goes through life, and life is grand, it's glorious, it's peaceful, it's pleasant. There's not a single glitch that goes on in his life. So it's wonderful. He'll enjoy himself. It's like being on vacation for his whole life. It's like sitting on the beaches of Tahiti with the sand in between your toes and a pina colada. Everything is wonderful. It's peaceful, relaxed. And maybe people would like to live like that. We're not going to knock it if someone's life is in such a way. However, David has been telling us again and again and again, that's not the purpose of life. Maybe Olam Haba, the world to come, where we're going to be able to glean the Ziv HaShechina, the splendor of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's glory. That's where we'll be able to enjoy that peace. But in this world, the things that are going to make us great is not easiness and cushy and taking it easy. No. The things that will make us great themselves are that we recognize that everything that Hashem does in the world of Hashkacha is all for the sake of training us, of making us greater. And therefore, if we accept that, and we recognize that, so then we can go through any situation in life, whether it is good, whether it is difficult, whether there's mediocre difficulty that is there, it's novice difficulty, advanced difficulty, beginner difficulty, whatever it might be, a person will be able to appreciate what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is doing. And let's keep in mind over here, as I mentioned in this introduction to this Tehillim, Dovid HaMelech is working it out in himself. So if Dovid HaMelech can work it out within himself, we also have the right to work it out within inside of ourselves. Says the pasuk, this is number 2. Amarti, I said, Eshmera derachai, I want you to guard my pathways, mechatoi, from sinning. And I ask you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, do not let me sin with my mouth, and I will keep my mouth closed, because there are Rishayim, there are wicked people that are standing in front of me constantly. Now says Rav Hirsch the following, and it would seem on the surface that this is a very high madrega that Dovid HaMelech ascribing to, but we'll see what happens. And he writes like this: I resolved, says Dovid HaMelech, that I'm not only going to guard my actions from doing hate, from doing sin, because I know, of course, that's obviously going to displease HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but I wanted every single word to be under control, that I should never incur the wrath from Hashem. Now, what does that mean? That means the following, he says, and that is that I have enemies that are standing around me all the time, and they're trying to make my life miserable. That's what they're here for, to make my life miserable. And I looked at their lives and I said, how could it be that they have success and they have power and they have might and they have riches and they have all the good, all the above? I thought I'm much greater than them, and yet I see they're the ones that are attacking me, and they're the ones that are having benefits and pleasures and goodness in this world. So therefore, to me, it looks like they have fortune and I'm going through unnecessary suffering in my life. And I could have responded to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I could have opened my mouth and I could have complained. It's not fair, which is something that most of us do when we are pressed under the strain. It's like when you ask a person, how you doing? And he says, I can't complain, which means he really could complain, but then he'll add on, no one's going to listen anyway. Which means that when a person is going through life and they feel that they're getting the short end of the stick, so that is where Dovid HaMelech says, I decided to keep quiet. I'm not going to ask any questions. I'm just going to be makabel, as he writes over here. It was my desire to keep silent in the face of this unexplainable hashkacha pratis, the way that you are running this world, Hashem, which gives providence in a contrary form to different people. It's a question, says King David. I don't understand. Why are my enemies prospering and why am I suffering? I don't understand. But you know what? I decided just to accept it. I'm not going to say a word. I don't want to sin with my actions towards you. I don't want to sin with my speech. Maybe I'm going to say something that seems counterintuitive, that seems like blasphemous in your eyes. I'll keep my mouth closed. However, says the next pasuk, Nelamti dumiya chashesi mitoiv ucheevi ne'ekar. So I remained silent, and I made it look like in my silence that I just makabel, I accepted everything that you're doing, and therefore everything is fine. However, my pain that was inside of me became worse. Now, this is a very important pasuk over here to understand Dovid HaMelech. Says Rav Hirsch, I committed myself, says Dovid HaMelech. I'm not going to question you, HaKadosh Baruch. I'm not going to ask why and how could it be. You have a way that you run the world. Some people suffer, some people prosper. I'm not going to ask any questions. I understand that's the way, and I can never fathom your ways, Hashem. However, and it would look like on the outside, people don't see Dovid HaMelech going wild. They don't see him asking, why? How can you do such a thing? So they must think that he's peaceful, he's relaxed, he's soothed over here. There's nothing really that is bothering him under the circumstances. However, you should know that this silence, not only did it not help me come to grips with the life that you are giving to me when I see other people that I would call wicked prospering, he says, you should know, on the contrary, it caused me great pain. My silence caused me great pain, says Dovid HaMelech. Cham, the next pasuk we'll see. Cham libi b'kirbi, my heart was getting hot inside of me. Ba'agigi sivar eish, my thoughts were like brooding. V'dibarti b'lashayni, and then I began to utter with my tongue what I had to say. Says Rav Hirsch, this brooding that I was thinking, how, why, I don't understand, why am I suffering, why are people prospering? It brought my soul to such a state of agitation that I could no longer refrain from uttering my thoughts. I thought, says Dovid HaMelech, that I was on such a high level. I could be a makabel, I could accept everything that you do to me, even though that it doesn't make any sense. I thought that I could live with the suffering and the crushing blows that you are pushing on me, even though there's my enemies that are prospering and having a good life. I thought that I'm on a madrega where I can handle all of that, and so I'll remain silent. I don't want to upset you, Hashem. I don't want to offend you with my questions. I don't want to ask why, how, what's the point? So therefore, says Dovid HaMelech, I remain quiet. But you know what happened? My silence ended up causing me problems. Because there was such a world, an internal world that was swimming around inside of me. There was fires of discontent, of malcontent. There's a furnace inside of me that's burning with pain and anxiety and lack of understanding. And therefore I got to the point I have no choice. I have to talk to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and I have to figure out what in the world is going on over here. And therefore he asks him, Hodiyeni Hashem Kitzi, I want you to allow me to recognize what is my goal. Umidas Yomai, and how long are going to be my days? Mahi Edo Machadil Ani, I want to know how short-lived, and we'll have to see what these words mean. Mechadil, how short-lived am I in this world? So now David begins asking, you're doing things to me, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. If you're doing things to me, it must be for a reason. So was I meant to be silent and just say, okay, I accept it? Or is there a lesson, is there something that you want me to learn from that which I'm going through right now? Says Rav Hirsch over here, really beautiful, beautiful words to explain what Dovid HaMelech is saying. And he says like this, he says that when Dovid HaMelech, at first he was upset, but then he began crystallizing what was bothering him. What was bothering him was he wants to know if in fact I'm going to suffer and other people are going to prosper. If I'm going to have difficulties and other people will have success. If I'm going to go through my life and the way that you're sending me my life and other people go through their life and you send it in the package that they have, I want to know what exactly is the purpose of man in this world. Why some like this, some like that? Why mine is like this and his is like that? I want to know what is my purpose here. And he said that David is spending all the days of his life engaged in these, again, as we see, nobody went through as much as he went through. And he doesn't know how much longer he's going to have in this world, and he wants to know. So what's the point? I've got enemies chasing me down. I have children in my own house that are trying to usurp my throne. I have sickness, I have loneliness, I have depression, I'm down and out. I don't know how long I'm going to live. Who says I'm going to live forever? I'm not going to. Ad Me'eh V'Esim Shana 120, most likely it'll be less than that, says David. So what's the point? What is the point of living a life that is difficult? I want to know, says Dovid HaMelech. Why would you put me through all these difficulties? Don't you love me, Hashem? Don't you care about me? Don't you want me to be close to you? Don't you want me to be a king that's able to run the kingdom with a peace of mind and not have to worry about all these things that are weighing down on me? Isn't that what you want, Hashem? So I'm just trying to figure out, what is the point? What is the point of all this? Could you imagine Dovid HaMelech is asking this? We're 39 TEHILLIM in over here. And he's asking Hashem, why are you doing all this to me? What is the point? Like I said before, that means that every person in their own life who goes through their own struggles and their own difficulties is justified in asking, Rabbi Shalom, what is the point? What do you want from me? So this, he says, brought David to ask, what's the true purpose of man? And he wants to know, is the good fortune or the lack of it, is it any bearing on the ultimate destiny of this person? Meaning, whether the destiny is not going to be dependent completely on his material circumstances in this world. If what you're doing to me in this world, so then it's my purpose is something for this world over here. How is David asking this? This is basics of Emunah, but he's asking. It's okay to ask. David's asking, if my purpose is here in this world, so then if I want to get the best out of this world, why are you making me suffer so much? And if it's the world, if there's a world beyond all of this, so then what is the suffering going to accomplish for me in being able to get to that world? So he writes, let me know my goal. What's my ultimate destiny? What are the measures of my days? Not how long am I going to live. Rather, how can I measure the value of the days that I am living through right now? Meaning that am I living them fully and completely? Or am I short-lived in the way that I'm living my life? Am I maximizing the potential that is there in every single day that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has set my way? Am I learning the lessons of the events of my life or those challenges that HaKadosh Baruch Hu sends, and therefore I'm stretching my days out as long and as deep as I can? Or because I don't understand what you want from me, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and I find myself getting agitated with my silence, not dealing with the issues that are in front of me, so maybe then, and in reality, he says, I'm really shortchanging myself, and I'm taking the beautiful days of life that you've given me, and I'm not using them appropriately in the right way. This is Dovid HaMelech asking these questions over here. Dovid HaMelech is working through these things inside of himself. So the Gemara says, so the pasuk says, "Hine tafacha is nesata yomai, v'chedli ka'ayin." He said, "You made my days as chedli." We'll see what that is. They're short-lived. Negdecha in front of you. Ach kol hevel kol adam nitzav sela. But you should know that man that is standing over here, there's so much hevel, so much emptiness that is inside of him. Says Rav Hirsch, and Rav Hirsch writes the following, and that is that you gave me days that are only tfachais. A tefach is a hand's breadth. That's pretty small and pretty short. That means that here in this world, a person's life, how long is it? In the larger realm or picture of things, you live 80 years, 100 years, 120 years. The world is 5,781 years old already. If that's the case, your life is just a drop in the bucket of humanity. So at the end of the day, my life in this physical world that we are describing is very, very limited and very small. So if that being the case, then I'm standing in front of you, Rabbi Shalom, you who have the key to all of eternity, and my brief life over here in the world, it's fading into nothingness because I'm going to come and I'm going to go, and who's going to remember me? And that means that this transitory gift that we call life, it seems extremely meaningless to me. I don't really understand. So therefore, I want to know that you put me in this world, and there must be a purpose, there must be rhyme, there must be reason, there must be intent behind all of it. So what I would like to know is that although that the existence of a person in this world is just a tefach, it's a small hand's breadth of reality, is it possible, Rabbi Shalom, that there is something else beyond this transitory, minimalistic world that we live in, of why it is that everything that I'm going through is to get me to that ultimate goal and ultimate purpose? Is Dovid HaMelech asking the most basic questions in the world, which anyone that has come to any of these shiurim over the last 10 years understands that everything that happens to a person is to make them greater and build them up, and therefore whatever I go through in my life, I'm going to become a greater person? Is Dovid HaMelech asking these questions? The answer is yes. Dovid HaMelech is asking these questions because he wants to understand in the deepest way possible why HaKadosh Baruch Hu puts him through the things that he is putting him through. The world is transitory. That's a given. Everybody knows that. From the dust you were born, and from the dust you shall return. Whether you'll live on for 100 years or more or less, that's irrelevant. It's not going to be forever. David wants to know, so then what's the point? What lamaisa? What is the great point? Again, maybe you're not so fascinated. It's fascinating to me. Dovid HaMelech was not embarrassed to ask these questions. He was not ashamed to be struggling in the world of pure amunah to know what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants of him, why he's doing it. We can take a chizuk from this. Don't feel bad if you have an off day of amunah. Do not feel bad if you go through challenges and you are questioning why HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you're doing this, what is the point? But that's Dovid HaMelech. He didn't just ask why. He asked, why, Rebbeinu Shalom, what is the point? What do you want me to get out of this situation in my life? And perhaps that's what we have to begin to learn when things are going on that maybe might be hard to deal with. And there are challenges and difficulties that are there. We're allowed to ask, why Hashem? I don't understand. But we have to ask, why and what do you want from me? The response of a Jew is, I recognize that you're doing something. I want to know, why are you doing the thing to me that you are doing? What do you want me to respond with? What do you want my reaction to me? What am I to learn from the situations that I'm going through in my life? When a person is able to ask those two questions, why and what? Why are you doing this and what do you want my response to be? So then you're aligning yourself with the life of Dovid HaMelech. Dovid HaMelech was courageous enough to ask a question which is on the tip of everybody's tongue probably every single day. Why Hashem? But David took it to the next stage. Why are you doing this? And what do you want from me, Hashem? If you're willing to ask the what question, so then you'll be able to capitalize on the situation that you find yourself in. If you are confident enough that there is a reason why HaKadosh Baruch Hu is doing what He's doing, and our job is to try to figure out what is the point, why He's putting us through what He's putting us through, so then you are in the same category as the great Dovid HaMelech, who was willing to ask why and what. And as we'll see in the next half of this TEHILLIM over here, how Dovid HaMelech begins answering his own questions to put everything in perspective so that he understands the Seder HaDevarim, the order of the way that the world is running. But we're not going to get to the answer yet. Because I'd like to see the Malbim over here, how the Malbim explains these psukim from the beginning, and it's a different angle, but it is all going to bring us to the same place. Says the Malbim over here, Lam Natseach, the beginning, this is a song over here. B'mizmar hazeh, in this particular Tehillim, Yedaber nichbados al Seid HaNefesh. Dovid HaMelech is speaking honorable and wondrous things about the Seid, about the secret of our Nefesh, of our soul. V'inyana, and the workings of the Neshama. V'al mitziusa, its essence. B'zeh haguf hanaguf, which finds itself trapped inside of this lowly body called the guf, called the body. Says Dovid HaMelech, says the Malbim over here, that you should know that as we're going forward in this Tehillim, Dovid HaMelech is explaining to us the true glory that resides inside of our neshamas. And the only way that we're going to be able to understand the koyach of our neshama, the power and the strength that is there, is if we get things straight in the very beginning. The soul is literally trapped inside of the guf hanaguf, inside of this very bodily, earthy place called our bodies. And therein will lie the secret to the success of our neshama. Amarti, says the pasuk, I said, Tehillah chishafti b'libi. Says Dovid HaMelech, in the beginning, originally I thought to myself, maybe I shouldn't ask such questions. Meaning, maybe I shouldn't ask what is the purpose of the neshama, or how is the neshama going to soar and grow in this world, and how are we going to deal with this steer, with this contradiction between the soul and the body. Maybe I shouldn't ask such questions. Maybe I should not delve in to the depth of understanding the soul. I wanted to guard my pathways. There's two reasons, says the Malbim, that Dovid HaMelech did not want to enter into the world of Jewish thought and philosophy of the power of the nefesh, of the soul, and how it's going to deal with its trappings over here in the physical world. What's the reason? Echad. First of all, he says, the mahus, the essence of the soul, is something which is hidden from man. A person can only relate to things that he comes to from his sensory abilities. Whatever I can see, taste, touch, smell, and hear, those 5 senses that a person has allows him to be able to receive information in this world and to see the reality of it. The Nephesh, the soul, says the Malbim, you can't know your neshama, your soul, through the 5 physical senses of this world. So what exactly could you know? If you can't see it, you can't hear it, you can't feel it, you can't taste it, you can't smell it, so then how are you supposed to know as a human being what your neshama, what your nefesh is? So Dovid HaMelech said, I'm being very cautious over here. Maybe I should not delve in to the secrets of the neshama, because the average human being is not going to be able to relate to that soul that's inside of them. And then he writes, I'm concerned, he says, to sin with my mouth, maybe I'll come to some kind of a sin as a result of my studying deeply the secrets of the neshama. Because maybe it's going to start to bother me that the soul is something that is so lofty, but it gets lost, it gets consumed somewhere inside of the body, and therefore I'll never find my nefesh. And then I'm going to be kaifer. Says Dovid HaMelech. We're talking about Dovid HaMelech. Dovid HaMelech says, I'm concerned that maybe I'll be a kaifer, maybe I'm going to deny the existence of the nefesh of the soul and the nitzchius and the eternality of the neshama that everybody takes as a davar pashut, as a simple fact. Dovid HaMelech says, I'm not sure that I should go down this route, because there's a lot at stake over here. And what's concerning to me, he says, is maybe it's going to lead me to the wrong place. Maybe I will not be able to arrive at a conclusion that will sit well with me. And at the end of the day, maybe I, Dovid HaMelech, the tzaddik of the generation, maybe I am going to come to a place of kfira, of heresy and denial over the pristine, eternality of my neshama. So that's one thing that is stopping Dovid HaMelech from jumping in to this sugya, to this learning. But secondly, he writes, even if I trust the strength of my own emunah, yeah, and I'm not concerned that I'll come to kfira, to heresy. I know that I'm strong in my emunah, my belief in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and I believe in the power of the neshama that Hashem has given me. I know that if I begin studying and going deeper and deeper and deeper, I'll just uncover well springs of the depth of the neshama, of why Hashem made the world the way that He did and how it's going to work with inside the goof. There's not going to be any contradictions over here. Says the Malbim, but I said, I have to guard my mouth, keep my mouth shut. Why? I should put a muzzle on my mouth. Means that I should not speak about these ideas at all. Why? Because there's wicked people that are standing around me. There are wicked people, my enemies, that are standing around me. I'm going to start asking questions on the neshama. I'm going to start asking details about how the soul and the body work. I'm going to have questions that are going to show that I myself am pondering why HaKadosh Baruch Hu made things the way that He did. But I have emunah. I'm chayzik, I'm strong in my emunah, my bitachon in Hashem. I know that all of my questions are going to lead me to the right place. It will lead me to the emes, to a deeper level of emes of understanding. But the Rishoyim that are standing around me, people who don't have emunah, people that are shvach, that are so weak, people that are submerged in this foolishness and the vanities of this world, people that have all their tightness, their complaints against Hashem, if they hear me, the great Dovid HaMelech, asking my questions, it's going to throw them off altogether and it will give them justification for why they continue to do the things that they do. Therefore, he says, how can I ask? Therefore I decided, I made myself like a mute, says Dovid HaMelech. I didn't say a word. I see my enemies landing palatial estates in the Bahamas with maids and butlers and servants and you name it, fancy cars in the garage over there, living on vacation all year long. And I see myself, Dovid HaMelech, running for my life from my enemies, overcoming sickness, depression, and the like, and I'm not going to ask a question. Because if I ask the wrong question, while the wrong person is standing around me, so it's going to give them more fuel for the fires of their kfir, of their heresy. So I made myself like I'm an Elam, I have nothing to say. And then he writes like this, Uke'ev necha, however, it began hurting me inside. Ki nafshi atzikasani la'ayim b'nidain zeh, my neshama is begging me, figure out what's going on in your life. You need to explore, you need to dig in, you need to go deeper inside of there so that you'll be able to understand. You must understand, David, what is the goal, what is the purpose of mankind? Why are you here? What does Hashem want from you? And the neshama was knocking on his heart day and night. Please, Reb David, he said, please figure it out. Ask the Rabbi, ask him, ask yourself, get inside over there. Because if you don't, then you won't understand what every single step of the way is supposed to be. Does anybody understand what this means over here? Dovid HaMelech, Melech of Klal Yisrael, Tzaddik Yisod Olam, the man who had all of Torah on his fingertips. He was chosen by Nasan HaNavi. He's the one that's going to take the kingdom. Dovid HaMelech is struggling in this world. And he's talking so openly about it. Oh, so openly about it. This means that if a child in school ever asks a question about Emunah, and a Rebbe gets upset with them, or a teacher gets upset with them, and tells them, what kind of a question is that? Are you a Jew? What kind of a question is that? Would you say the same thing to Dovid HaMelech? Would you say, what's the matter with you, King David? You don't know what Emunah is? You don't know? Now, Dovid HaMelech was willing to embarrass himself for all generations that we should understand. We ask the questions. We have to figure out what's the tachlis, what's the purpose, what's the goal, why are we here? Well, therefore, Dovid HaMelech goes on and begins asking the questions. So I'm skipping a pasuk or two over here and going to Hey. And he writes, I want you to explain to me what is the shortness of life, what is the purpose of life. Says the Malbim, Adam Yim says, and now he begins to explain. A human being finds themselves as a taishav dwelling in two opposite universes, two totally different worlds. You must understand for yourself the root of these two opposites. Remember, there's the neshama and there's the goof. There is the soul and there is the body. Two separate planets. They do not coexist. And yet HaKadosh Baruch Hu said they are going to coexist. But you can only coexist in a positive way and succeed if you understand how they're supposed to deal together. Says the Malbim Yav, Kies, Yabi Lamata, Elagavia Kocheseha. First of all, he says, let's look at the body. Look at the body, look at its strength, its abilities. So no, on the first hand, you see yourself, you're just a body. As the scientists will tell you, 96, 97% of the physical body is the exact DNA of a chimpanzee. Darwin, as we said before, he was not so far off when he said that a human being comes from the chimpanzee. It's true. In the animalistic aspect of ourselves, so we're not so much different than a monkey that's swinging from the trees. But you have to recognize, what's a monkey? He sits in the African jungles and eats bananas, and he picks out bugs from tree trunks, and he picks out the lice from somebody else's hair. That's what a monkey does. He runs around without clothing. That's what a monkey does. He gets angry and he beats his chest like this. That's a monkey. So on one hand, you want to look at yourself as a monkey, look at yourself as a monkey. You're on the lowest level that's possible. You're just an animal like everything else in this world. That's one thing, says Dovid HaMelech, a person has to look for. Mutpa, al chukim tiviyim mugbalim, kekol tzetzei ha'olam ha'chomri. But there's limitations. In the physical world, you're limited by the mugbalim, by the boundaries that every single physical species has in this world. However, ve'es, at the same time, yifne l'mayla, you have to look above. You have to look at this lofty, glorious portion that you have inside of you, which is your nefesh, it's your soul, and all the koiches hanefesh, the spiritual powers that your soul has. Yireh, you should see. Shu ke'echa mimnei Elokim. You are like, your nefesh is like a child of Hashem. It's like one of the malachim, like one of the angels. It's something that is so lofty and so high up there. Chavshi poyel kifi abechir. It's free to be poyel, to do things based upon the ability to be boicher, to choose right from wrong. V'kol chayseha, and all of its strengths of the neshama. Bilti mugbalim. There's no limitations on the koyach haneshama that a person has. Rachmis pashtim le'ein tachlis. They will expand without any boundaries, without any limitations. Says the Malbim, at the time that you're looking at the lowliness of your body, you're a monkey walking around in clothing. At the same time, acknowledge the glory of your neshama, which is so lofty and it's so big. It has unending koiches abilities, and it is something that is limitless in what it could accomplish in this world. Until a person has to begin asking themselves, which world do I come from? Am I Lord of the apes, King of the apes? Or am I like a Malach Hashem, like an angel? Where do I belong? Kishnei Ashurashim Asher Bekirboim B'Milchama Temidis Ze'im Zeh. These two roots, these two elements, the body and the soul, they are in a milchama, constant battle every single day, fighting against each other. The laws of nature are going against the laws of Bechira. Where's Bechira? Free will. Where does free will come from? From the physical world? No. Bechira is the expression of the truest desires that are there inside of your neshama, of your soul. The world of Bechira is tagged or earmarked for the spiritual realm. You have a physical body and a nefesh habahamis, a lowly animalistic spirit, which is trying to pull you over here. So your Bechira, which we want to choose the right thing, is constantly at battle with a body, with a world, with a society, with impurities, with the sheker of this world. It's constantly in battle with this world, and it's trying to make us not be able to tap in to the spiritual energies that's inside of ourselves and make the right decisions in our life. Rachmana litzlan. V'chuki ateva v'zeh shekosav, and that's what Dovid HaMelech is saying. Shavake shetodieni, I'm begging you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, let me know. Ve'eda mahus shnei hasharash meila, I need to understand clearly the sharashim, the roots of these two entities. I need to understand how lowly the physical world is, and I need to understand how lofty the spiritual world is. If, in fact, I'm going to be able to use the gift of Bechir that you have given me for the right things, I must be able to identify these two worlds with the greatest clarity possible. And therefore he writes, please tell me, which world do I come from? Do I come from this chalad over here? Hard to know exactly how to translate the chalad, but do I come from the part of life where it's going to be the elyon, the upper realm, the neshama, or do I come from a part of life where it's going to be just the lower place that's going to bring me down here? Dovid HaMelech, once again, asking. So he says, Umitzad echad, roya ani es atzmi bilti mugbel so bilti bal tachlis. On one hand, says Dovid HaMelech, I appreciate the power of my neshama. And I see that I have no limitations, and I'm climbing every single day to higher madrigas, and I can accomplish so much. Ki koiches hanefesh miznasim min azman, because the powers that are inside the soul are lifted above the zman, the time, v'amokim, in the place, and v'chuki ateva, and the laws of nature. V'yagbiu oif lahavshi maleim es hagvul. It's like my nefesh, like a bird, and it's flying past all of the constraints of this world, and it's just going up, flying up into the heavens in the highest, most remarkable way possible. So on one hand, says Dovid HaMelech, I look at my nefesh, it's so poetic the way the Malbim writes. I look at my neshama, it's like a bird, this long wingspan, and it's flying past my body, it's flying past the boundaries of this world, it's flying past the lowliness of the physicality, the chukei teva, the laws of nature. My nefesh is not bound at all by what is going on down here in this world. That's on one hand. Ki ha-seichel yitzai as atzmi bilti mugbal. My seichel, my mind, is able to allow me to realize that I'm limitless in what I could accomplish. Therefore, the tshuka, the desire that a person has for spiritual greatness, also should know no boundaries. It should also be limitless. Nevertheless, lo yuchal hagil hatachlis abilti, I'm still not able to reach the ultimate goal that I want to. Ki hachaymer machmir aleihim, even though that I'm able to recognize that my neshama is limitless, and I could climb and fly like a bird up into the heavens, and I can go beyond all of the chukei teva, all the laws of nature. I got a problem, says Dovid HaMelech. The reality is that I am trapped over here in this world. Ki hachaymer machbir aleihem, the physical, earthy nature of this world is weighing down on me. Rakeh miznasim lezeh v'yelchu michayil l'chayil v'tisane es ha'efo bein ha'aretz u'bein hashamayim. And it's getting more challenging for me, he says, to be able to fly up into that airspace that I would like to. I recognize the koyach that is there. At the same time, reality is the world is a tough place. The body is very constraining. The impurities that are all around me, which for some reason I kept getting drawn after again and again and again, all of those things, they pull me down and they bring me down. And therefore he writes, Shekol Adam K'moishuhu, who kol hevel, a person should know, if you leave yourself to your physical reality, then you are a koil hevel. It's all vanities. It's empty worthlessness. Shu hevel mitzad agvia ve'havala v'nirkov. You are hevel. You are, there's empty. There's nothingness there, based on your body, because it is havala v'nirkov. Eventually, the corpse is going to end up in the ground and it will decompose. V'hevel mitzad nefesh. But at that point, and this is the frightening part that Dovid HaMelech introduces over here. At the point that a person is completely inside of his goof, of the body, and he's living, reeling with the emptiness that is there. V'akol hevel mitzad nefesh. The nefesh, the soul, also has nothingness. She'oif kotzus kanfayim. You become like a bird with clipped wings. Shakua b'kolei asa b'nechushasam. Because you are now immersed completely inside the physicality of your body and this world, and you cannot fly out of there. And now says the Malbim, and we're holding in the same place that Rav Hirsch was, once that Dovid has clarified for himself what is bothering him. What is bothering him is he sees the grandeur of the neshama, and he knows that it is limitless and it could fly into the Shemaim, into the heavens, and it's not going to be bound by anything. The koiches hanefesh, the powers of the soul, are eternally limitless. You can accomplish anything that you want. At the same time, I recognize, says Dovid HaMelech, the koich haguf, the power of the body. And the body is within the realm of this world. The body is with its animalistic desires. The body is shaku, it's sunk in to the physicality and the earthiness that is here. And it's not gonna, it's bounded by the gvulim, by the limitations of this world. It's true. So now, says Dovid HaMelech, so I recognize the koiches that are both, but I've got a major problem. Once that you put my neshama inside the body, by the very definition that is in my body, it's limited. It's like a bird whose wings are clipped. It cannot fly very far. And even if I hear the voice of my neshama that it wants to do, it wants to accomplish, it's being drowned out by the heretical sayings and statements of my body that's telling me, just become a member of this world. Live it up, enjoy. Don't think about HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Don't worry about mitzvahs and averes and all these things. You don't need any of that. Just enjoy what you have in front of you. What's going to happen in 120 years? You're going to end up dying? No, so what? Who says there's anything after this world anyway that you're going to have to pay up for? So says David, I'm trapped. Which is like my wife's grandmother, towards the end of her life, she had Parkinson's disease. And her intellect worked sharp till the very last day of her life, but at a certain point, the last several years of her life, she could not really talk. She was a very sophisticated woman. She was very intellectual. She was always writing down very deep thoughts and sharing them with her children and her grandchildren. She was a woman that was very accomplished in many different things. The last couple of years of her life, she couldn't write and she couldn't talk. When you would look in her eyes, you would see suffering and pain. What was her suffering? Yes, she was physically suffering. Her body was shutting down. But I always felt that the greatest suffering that she had was that her mind was at work, but it was trapped in a body that could do nothing. Her mind was able to convey the deepest ideas and messages that she did for many, many years. And she would write them down. Her hand would no longer write. She wanted to say something to her child, to her grandchild, but her lips didn't work. She couldn't get it out. And when you would look at her eyes, you would see such pain and such sorrow, because she was a soul. She was an intellectual woman. She was a bright woman. She was trapped in a body that no longer allowed her to do what she had to do and what she wanted to do. Says Dovid HaMelech, I'm trapped. I have a neshama hagedoyla that's so great and so pure and has so much potential. It wants to accomplish and to do and to soar higher and higher and higher. But Ribbono Shel Olam, you put me in this body, you clip my wings. Where can I go? What can I do? So I have all this that I want to express, but I'm so trapped. I cannot become the person that I want to become. I cannot share my neshama with this world the way that I want to. So I want to know, Ribbono Shel Olam, what do you want from me? How do you want me to live in these polar opposite existence that I find myself in right now? How in the world am I going to be able to elevate my neshama, which is limitless, outside the limitations of my body? Says the Malbim, the next part of this Tehillim will begin to describe the answers that Dovid HaMelech comes to, which is going to be the chizik for us of how Be'ez Hashem we are going to live our lives properly as well. So Be'ez Hashem, next week we have to get to the answer of the Malbim and the answer of Hirsch, and we will see the lessons that Dovid HaMelech learned for himself and that he shared with Klal Yisrael for all generations. Have a wonderful week, everyone.